Here we are again with another top 10 songs video. You can probably tell I like making these videos because there are a lot at the moment on this channel and I'm not slowing down anytime soon. They are a lot of fun to make, and if you want your own requests, you want to see more of these, well, please check out my Patreon, as you can support me over on there and get your own requests in for any types of artists that you want to see me talk about at length like this on this channel. If you follow me on Twitter though, you will probably know, or you may have seen, you might not have seen, who knows. I did a poll a little while back and was like, you know what, once the dust settles, once we let some time pass, what would you like to see me do for a Travis Scott video? And the poll ended up being swinging in the favour of a worst to best. Well, I've ignored the democratic process and I've actually taken charge and decided that I'm going to do a top 10 songs instead. You know, I'm just not here listening to democracy, okay? I'm going to storm the Capitol. Shouldn't say that, should not say that. Travis Scott, I'm sure you're aware of already, a big game player when it comes to modern hip-hop and modern trap sounds. He has been such an influential part of the 2010s and beyond in the world of hip-hop music and has had a massive impact. He's been so really consistent, actually. Like, his albums haven't really dipped hugely in quality. Even Birds, which was pretty much panned at the time, I think is actually all right. There's some really good tracks on there, to be honest with you, and I think his worst to best would kind of write itself. I don't have a particular hot take when it comes to his albums being ranked in any particular way, but I thought it would just be way more interesting to do a top 10 songs list, because there's a few that sneak in here that might be a little bit different, that might be a bit of a surprise. But even still, actually, I think a lot of people will mostly agree with his best tracks ever. They also kind of write themselves in any particular order. I think a lot of people would agree, you know, a lot of tracks of his that make it onto my list would also make it onto yours. And yeah, let's just not waste more time here and talk about his best songs. As I always start with 5 honorable mentions, and I'm going to do that right now. I've got it written down here, and a bit of a surprise one maybe to start it off, even though I just said these lists write themselves. But My Eyes makes it into an honourable mention for me. I actually love this track. I think it's a really beautiful Travis Scott song, something that we haven't really heard him do before, going really somber, to the point where he's ended up sounding more like Frank Ocean than anything else, to be honest with you. Yeah, I was impressed with this track. I really like it, and I thought it was worthy of being included here. R.I.P. Screw doesn't quite make the top 10, but I think it would make a lot of people's top 10s, to be honest with you. Another track that's a bit low-key in how he delivers, I think obviously the tribute to Screw is obviously making the track kind of write itself and being a bit more slower, a bit more tepid, but it's actually really well produced as well. 2 tracks that I want to mention from Rodeo. Rodeo will appear a lot on this list, I will say. But Antidote, which nearly made this top 10 actually, but when I was writing it and when I was going back to other songs, it fell out a little bit. So a bit of a surprise drop off for that one, but even still, it's a great track, one of his most successful songs, super catchy. You all know this track. And then 3,500, 3,500, whatever you want to call it. Maybe his longest ever song. I mean, don't quote me on that. I can't remember the exact numbers of all his tracks, but it is a super long track with 2 Chainz and Future. Future's feature on that track is iconic, to be honest with you. Didn't quite make the list though. And my 5th honourable mention kind of gets out of the top 10 just by default, really, because I think it's technically, you know, a shared song, but I had to mention it because Pick Up the Phone with Young Thug is just outrageously good. Like, the beat is so catchy, the beat is such an earworm. Like, the beat itself gets stuck in my head probably more than the contributions of Travis and Young Thug on this track. And they are excellent on it, but that beat is so good. But the fact that I think it's a double billing and it's technically both their songs and they're equally contributing to it, it seemed a bit wrong to have it in the top 10. But to be honest with you, I'm happy with the 10 I've got in my top 10. I think they all might be songs that I prefer to this one anyway. So yeah, honourable mention for Pick Up the Phone. Stressing over war shows. Straight into the top 10 now then, we've got Coffee Bean starting the list. A track that has grown on me a lot over time. I even mentioned it not too long ago in a video where I was talking about albums that grew on me, and Astroworld did really astronomically grow on me. It was an album that I used to just outright dislike, But Coffee Bean is a track that, again, along with the album Growing on Me, has just grown on me like crazy. Really love the beat on this track. Really love his low-key delivery as well. I've already mentioned that a few times with the honorable mentions, where his delivery is a bit more restrained. But I really like the way he's riding over that beat. I think it sounds great. I like how it just doesn't really shout and scream in your face, but still feels like it's tickling that spot, you know. And compared to some of his other tracks that will be on this list as well, that feel like huge events, it was just really nice to hear him try something a little bit different. Totally new, unique beat for anything he's really done before, and it just ends up coming out as good as this. Yeah, I absolutely love Coffee Bean. And number 9 here, we've got Maria, I'm Drunk, which has become a bit of a fan favourite, really. I think for a little bit it was taken off streaming, and there were people that were really outraged by that and wanted it back on. Can't remember the exact reasoning as to why it was, but I'm sure there was a period where it wasn't on there. And yeah, what a weird collaboration to have Justin Bieber on a Young Thug and Travis Scott song. I mean, back in 2015, we saw a total change of what Justin Bieber wanted to be perceived as. He was going through that sort of rebellious era, doing all kinds of interesting and strange collaborations, and this was definitely up there with one of them. But in fairness, he does not sound out of place on this track, which you would just not think of before the track existing. Like, if someone said this was going to happen, I would have just been like, no way should Justin Bieber be on a Travis Scott song. But it works so well. The chorus is super memorable and iconic. Yeah, like I say, Rodeo's going to get a lot of praise in this video, and I think it's tracks like this that just make the album sound so expansive and huge and different to a lot of other albums in its lane. Like, you just don't hear tracks like this from other artists doing this kind of music. It's super, super good. Alright, I've said this before, but I do have a soft spot for Don Toliver. I've got to say, man. And when he gets it right, he really gets it right. Like, sometimes on tracks where he's just singing and pouring out his heart and saying shit that's just like so wrong and inappropriate, but like he can kill it. And on this track, can't say, another track that's grown on me like crazy, I just think he gets it right. He gets it right. And this is a highlight from Astro World to me. This is a great track. I think there will be a lot of people that might have thought, you know, oh, why not this track from Astro World, or why not that one? But sometimes those catchy, poppy moments that Travis really gets in his bag with just end up being some of the best, and this is that. I mean, what an explosive track this is, kicking off Utopia in a way where we've never heard Travis in this lane before. It was such a clever thing to do. It had to start like this, really. We'd waited so long for him to drop anything, and to start in such an explosive and absolutely like fiery way. I mean, his delivery on this track is fantastic. The beat is outrageous. Like, it just couldn't start in any other way. We needed something to make us feel like the wait was worth it, and Hyena is just absolutely that. I mean, Jesus, man, we've got a Funkadelic sample, a Gentle Giant sample in here. I mean, what were they cooking up in the lab when they were making this song? Seriously, pulling out those types of samples is just ridiculous. And it sounds so good too. I mean, it's one thing sampling some obscure and weird little things, but when you're making it work this good, oh my god, this track is so good. In some ways, I feel like as time passes, this could be higher on this list, really. But for now, I'm keeping it at 7. And yeah, it's a newer track, but for me, it has to be in his top 10. I know. Alright, this one at number 6 might be a little bit more surprising now, I've got to say, because I do feel as though when I was seeing people talk about this album when it came out and doing their, you know, track list rankings and all that kind of stuff, this tended to fall down the pecking order and be near the bottom for a lot of people. I really don't get it. And as a little mini spoiler for the rest of this video, this is my favourite track from Utopia for sure. I absolutely love this one. I love how it is so simple, but yet it's incredibly effective and doesn't really scream out to you. Like I've already said with other tracks like Coffee Bean, it's just so earwormy and catchy, and there isn't a huge amount going on here, but the way he kind of uses repetition to, you know, kind of bring that I know, back and forth quite a few times. I just love it. I just love this track. I think over time people might appreciate this one a little bit more. Or I'll just end up being the only person, you know, fighting in the corner of this song. I don't really know. But yeah, I think this track is fantastic.
Astro. Yeah.
Top 5 now, and I do feel a little wrong to do this, but you know when something is so obvious, but it actually is just that good? I think Sicko Mode is that track. This track is just that good. I hate to be the basic bitch here, but having it in my top 5 just feels right. It just has to be there for me. I mean, not only is this just such an explosive and eventful and creative, like huge hit song, but it's also just one of his most creative and explosive songs, period. Like, it isn't just the one that got popular. This song is historic in so many ways. I mean, Sway Lee sounds amazing. The Drake verse is fantastic too. Like, the layers and the dynamics and the way this track goes through so many different phases is incredible. And Travis has always done this. Like, this isn't the only Travis Scott song that has a beat switch or anything like that, or even multiple beat switches. Travis has been the king of this for years, and it was kind of cool to see him reap those rewards and see that success finally with one track that did all of the things he'd been doing up until that point anyway. But I think the you know, the excitement of Drake being on it probably helped push it along too. But seriously, even with all the jokes about it being the modern Bohemian Rhapsody and stuff like that, I still have to take into account how fantastic of an achievement this song is. And I'm not even going to lie, I get excited every time this song comes on, man. I do. I like playing this song. I still play it regularly to this day, and I still have a great time hearing it. It's never got boring for me. It's never been so, you know, hitting a point where I'm like, oh, I'm bored of that beat switch. It's so obvious now. I know what's coming. It always feels like a nice little surprise, the way the song kind of moves along. It's great. It is great. And the king of beat switches, Travis Scott, was deserving of this one's success. I have it in my top 5.
I get those goosebumps every time. I need the Hyena.
At number 4, though, we have a totally different song for me as a personal experience, because initially when this came out, I didn't like this song. I didn't like it. I was very much on the hate train for Birds as an album. But again, another album that kind of grew on me over time, and a song that just ended up growing on me like crazy too. I didn't really acknowledge how well put together this track is in terms of the beat. It's got a menace to it that I really like. And yeah, I think the hook is fantastic too. And what a great feature from Kendrick Lamar. I mean, it doesn't sound like it should work for him. I don't hear this song and think Kendrick Lamar's going to come on this and make it work. If anything, I'm always like waiting for him to come on and be like, he's not going to do it, is he? He's not going to do it. And even after the many times I've heard it, I still have that thought in the back of my mind. And then he comes on and he just sounds like right at home on this beat. It's great. I love this track. I think it's probably the widely regarded best track from Birds, although I have seen some love for other tracks like First Take or Way Back and stuff like that. They're decent as well, but for me, I just love Goosebumps the most from this album, and is in my top 5 too.
In that 90210, 90210, looking for the alley.
Okay, while Sicko Mode is a blockbuster event of a beat switch song, as great as it is in my top 5, so that is high praise. He has done better beat switches. And 90210, good God, what a track this is. The way he came up with this, I do not know. How did he make, how? The bar, transitioning into that beautiful piano part with Casey Hill's vocals. Oh my goodness, what a track this is. 90210 just feels like otherworldly, and that was one of my, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? The thing that made me in awe of Rodeo to begin with. You know, these tracks that just feel like they can't transition into anything else. Like, they can't go anywhere else, but they go somewhere new and they just end up taking you to a place that you couldn't even imagine, and it ends up being better than it was before. It's incredible what he does. 90210 is truly one of his most iconic songs. I think a lot of people would actually have this at number one, and there were doubts. I was like, this could be my number one, but actually there are two more above it.
Let me tell you a little story about this side. You really couldn't make it on this side.
Oh my Decide. Oh my Decide. Another track that was battling in my brain and thinking, is this his best song? Is this his best song? And for a lot of people it will be. And for me, for a long time it was too. But you know, we do have something above it. But before we get to that, I have to sing this one's praises. It is just brilliant. Another track that again takes you through phases, takes you through a journey in a way that just feels so brilliant and unique. And Travis, while a lot of people have critiqued him for not having a very interesting narrative or interesting lyrical ideas, he makes up for in spades by just using those little repetitive moments and then kind of breaking them down and taking them to a new place. I mean, the Oh My Decide refrain becomes something totally different later on. It's so good. It's so brilliantly done. And it made people kind of view music differently, I think. Because while Rodeo isn't the first amazing trap album and isn't necessarily trap by definition of what trap actually initially meant, it is an album that made people think, okay, this is where we could go. This is where music could go. This is where trap music could go if we had this kind of brain in control of it. Because tracks like this just have so much thought going into them, and they're just so brilliantly executed as well. Like I say, Sicko Mode, as amazing as it is, you know, you couldn't get Sicko Mode without these tracks first. You couldn't do that. You couldn't get to that point without him experimenting with these transitions and things initially. And 90210 and Oh My Decide are just excellent songs. But somehow there is one that is better for me.
Someone kill the lights. I brought the party favor.
This is why I like these videos, man. Unless I've been explicitly obvious with what my favorite song by an artist is in the past, in other videos or anything like that, you couldn't really guess what's about to come next. And I don't think people would have saw this one coming, honestly. Nightcrawler, for me, is Travis Scott's best song. And it really, really, really only happened recently when I realized how freaking good this song is. Oh my days. What an absolute smasher of a track. This track, the way it comes in with the beat, that kind of weird siren thing that kind of sort of scratches at you and pokes at you and digs at you throughout the song, which probably would annoy a lot of people, but it doesn't me. And the way Sway Lee comes in, he is magic on this track, by the way. I mean, what a weird thing to read when you look at like the Genius, you know, sort of song structure for this song, because it apparently calls Sway Lee's part a verse. But whenever you hear Sway Lee, he ain't doing verses, he's doing hooks, he's doing a chorus every goddamn time. He's singing his heart out, he sounds so great, he sounds so just catchy and just brilliant. It's fantastic. And then you get to Travis's part. He sounds like absolutely bonkers, by the way, on this. But then he's got his own little hook too. Chief Keef comes in later on. Chief Keef, man, is on this track. I mean, I sometimes forget that he's there, and then he pops up. I'm like, oh my god, he's asking to order more money. What does that even mean? What do any of these lyrics honestly even mean? It is just an absolute hedonistic mess and monster of a song. Like it is really just hedonism in a bottle. But the way it sounds, the way there's like 10 to 15 different hooky parts is crazy. It's structured in such a great way. And while it's not the most adventurous in terms of having, you know, switches and things like that we have talked about already in this video, it just hits that extra harder for me, just somehow more so than any other Travis song. Yeah, this to me is his best one. It is so good. It's such an event of a track. It's such a treat of a song, and is Travis's best ever song. So I do hope you agree with me on that. But something tells me that people will have a different Travis Scott best song, and I'm excited to see what you will say in the comments, because I think this top 10 could be ordered differently and it would make sense, and I think there would be other songs that I didn't mention that would be in other people's top 10s that also would make sense. But overall, I'm excited to see what people think of this video. If you agree with me or disagree with me, please let me know in the comments. Please subscribe if you haven't already as well. And if you are interested in checking out my Patreon, please do, because you can get videos like this in the future as well. Have a good day and comment below your list. Check out some more videos. Goodbye.